Yang Kim sat in the waiting room, his heart beating fast. The room was cold and white. Metal walls reflected the bright lights. 5 other beings sat with him, none of them human. Yang was the only human there. "Human candidate 1A, please enter," said a voice from a speaker. Yang stood up. His hands shook a little. He was the first human ever picked for the Interstellar Academy's test. The door slid open with a soft hiss. He walked into a large round room where 7 aliens sat behind a tall desk. The alien in the middle looked at Yang with 3 large eyes. This was Grand Examiner Du-hyun. His skin was blue and rough like stone. Yang Kim of Earth, Du-hyun said in a deep voice. "Do you know why you are here?" Yang stood straight. "I was chosen for the survival qualification test, sir." Do-hyun's mouth turned up in what might have been a smile. "Yes, every 5 years, we pick the best from all planets. You are the first human ever chosen." A smaller alien with red scales leaned forward. "Humans are weak. They need special air, special heat, special food. How can this one pass our test?" Yang didn't speak. He knew many aliens thought humans were too weak for space. Humans didn't have special powers or strong bodies like other species. "That is what we will find out," Du-hyun said. He pressed a button, and a large screen lit up behind him. It showed a planet that was white and blue. "This is Yolium-7. It is your test location." The image changed to show ice storms so strong they threw rocks into the air. The ground was cracked with deep blue ice. Nothing grew there. "Yolium-7 has the worst cold in this part of space," Du-hyun explained. "The normal temperature is -75 degrees. During storms, it drops to -120 degrees. Yang felt his mouth go dry. That was colder than the worst places on Earth, but he had studied for this. He knew how people had lived in Earth's cold places for thousands of years. "The test is simple," Du-hyun continued. "You will have 30 days on the planet's surface. You may build any shelter using only what you find there. We give you 1 toolkit." He held up a small metal box. It has a knife, fire starter, and 1 small power cell. The red-scaled alien laughed. "Humans need special suits just to breathe normal air. He will freeze in 1 day." Do-hyun looked at Yang. "What do you say to that?" Yang thought about the stories his grandfather told him, about how their family had lived in the mountains long ago, how they had survived winter with just simple tools and knowledge. Humans have lived in very cold places on Earth for thousands of years. Yang said, "We built warm homes from snow and ice. We made fire when there was nothing to burn. We survived." Do-hyun's 3 eyes blinked slowly. "Interesting. Most candidates talk about their strength or special powers. You talk about your history." He pressed another button. A small card came out of the desk. He gave it to Yang. "This is your pass. The ship leaves tomorrow at dawn. Pack nothing. Wear only the test uniform." Yang took the card. As he turned to leave, Du-hyun spoke again. "Human, there is something you should know. No one expects you to pass this test. No one believes humans can survive Yolium-7." Yang looked back at the alien. "Then I will show you what humans can do." As the door closed behind him, Yang heard the aliens talking. He couldn't understand all their words, but he knew they were betting on how quickly he would die. He looked at the card in his hand. He would not die. He would show them what humans could do when pushed to their limits. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. The ship was large and gray. Yang sat in a seat made for someone much bigger than him. He wore the test uniform, a simple blue jumpsuit that did not look warm enough for ice planets. 5 other beings sat in the ship with him. They were the other test takers. They all looked at Yang with curious eyes. No human had ever been on this test before. A tall alien with 6 arms walked over to Yang. Its skin was thick and purple, like a warm coat. "I am Hae-Newell," the alien said. Its voice was deep. You are the human, yes. I have never seen one before. Tai Yang nodded. I am Tai Yang Kim from Earth. Hanul sat next to him. I come from the cold moons of Andromeda. My people live in ice caves. Our bodies make heat even in the worst cold. Tai Yang tried not to show worry on his face. This alien was born for cold places. What chance did he have? A glowing orange ball of light floated over. It had no clear shape but seemed to pulse with heat. I am Suji, the ball of light said. I am pure energy. I live in the hot gases of Orion stars. Cold is nothing to me. I change form to stay warm. Before Tai Yang could answer, a green alien with scales and 4 eyes joined them. It wore many small devices on its belt. Wu Jin of Centauri, it said shortly. I have trained for 5 years for this test. My technology will keep me alive. The green alien looked at Tai Yang's empty hands. You bring no special tech, no genetic upgrades. How will you survive, human? Tai Yang shrugged. We will see. A thin cloud of blue gas inside a clear suit floated by. I am Jeho, it said in a whispery voice. My form is gas. I need this suit to hold my shape. The last alien was made of dark gray stone. It had no mouth but spoke through cracks in its rocky skin. I am Junwoo. My body is silicon. Cold does not crack me easily. The ship shook as it left the space station. The test had begun. A screen lit up at the front of the ship. Master Hyun-ki, the head teacher, appeared. He had green skin and 1 large eye. Welcome, candidates, Hyun-ki said. In 1 hour, we reach Eolium 7. This test is simple. Survive for 30 days. Use what you find there. Your pack has 1 power cell, 1 tool, 1 emergency beacon, and 1 thermal blanket. Suji, the ball of energy, glowed brighter. Too easy. I will convert the planet's energy to heat. Haenul flexed all 6 arms. My body will keep me warm enough. Wu Jin tapped its tech devices. My tools will build me a perfect shelter. Tai Yang said nothing. He thought about old Earth books he had read, about igloos made of snow, about how still air trapped between layers kept people warm, about how the coldest places on Earth had people living in them for thousands of years. You will each start in different areas, Hyun-ki continued, 5 kilometers apart. You may work alone or together. All that matters is survival. The ship began to shake as it entered the planet's air. Through the window, Tai Yang saw only white and blue. The whole planet was ice. We land in 10 minutes, the ship's computer said. The other aliens checked their special abilities. Haenul's skin glowed with inner heat. Suji pulsed brighter. Wu Jin tested its devices. Ji-ho checked its suit. Junwoo sat still, confident in its stone body. Tai Yang had only his human mind. But sometimes, that was enough. The ship touched down with a crunch of ice. The door opened, and freezing air rushed in. The test had begun. The cold hit Tai Yang like a wall. His breath turned white in front of his face. The small computer on his wrist beeped. -75 degrees Celsius. That was colder than the worst winter day on Earth. The ship had dropped each person in a different spot. Tai Yang was alone in a field of ice and snow. All around him were strange blue ice shapes. Some looked like towers. Others were flat like tables. The sky was dark purple with 3 small suns that gave little heat. 30 days, Tai Yang said to himself. His voice sounded strange in the thin, cold air. He opened his small pack. Inside was a knife that could change shape, a power cell the size of his thumb, a red button for emergencies, and 1 silver blanket. Not much to survive with. Tai Yang knew he had to move fast. Standing still would freeze him. He began to walk, looking at everything around him. His grandfather had always said, "Know your land before you try to live on it." Near a large ice tower, Tai Yang found something interesting. There were small rocks that looked like metal. When he picked one up, it felt warm. He put it in his pocket and kept looking. After an hour, Tai Yang had collected many things: the warm metal rocks, some clear crystals that had strange patterns, and ice blocks of different types. Some ice was hard as rock. Other ice was soft like snow. He had seen Earth people build houses from both kinds. Suddenly, his wrist computer beeped again. Warning: temperature dropping. Storm coming in 6 hours. Tai Yang looked up. In the distance, dark clouds were moving his way. He needed a shelter fast. He found a small hill with a side that was blocked from the wind. This would be a good place. He began to work. First, he cut blocks from the soft ice. He stacked them in a circle, making the walls curve inward like the igloos he had read about. Earth people in the far north had made these for thousands of years. As he worked, Tai Yang saw something flash in the sky. It was Suji, the energy being. Suji was flying around, looking for power sources on the planet. The energy being did not need a shelter. It could change its form to stay warm. In another direction, he saw Hainul. The 6-armed alien was digging deep into the ice. Its body glowed with heat. It also did not seem worried about the cold. Tai Yang worked faster. His hands hurt from the cold, but he kept going. The storm was coming. He placed the last ice block at the top of his dome-shaped shelter. Then he crawled inside through a small door. It was warmer out of the wind, but still very cold. Now came the important part. Tai Yang took out the metal rocks he had found. He placed them in a circle. Then he put the power cell in the middle. He had noticed that the rocks got warmer when near the power cell. Maybe they could work as a heater. He was right. The rocks began to glow red. Heat filled the small ice house. Tai Yang smiled. The temperature inside was now just below freezing, much better than outside. Next, he took the crystals he had found. He placed them around the walls. They began to glow with a soft blue light. They also seemed to reflect the heat back into the room. Tai Yang sat in his new home and wrapped the silver blanket around himself. Outside, the wind began to howl as the storm came closer. His wrist computer beeped again. External temperature, -95 degrees Celsius and dropping. The test had just begun, but Tai Yang had made his first step toward survival. While the aliens relied on their special bodies or powers, he had used his human mind to build a shelter from what the land gave him. The storm was coming, but Tai Yang was ready. The storm came with a roar. Wind hit Tai Yang's ice shelter like a giant hand. Snow and ice bits flew through the air like sharp bullets. The temperature outside dropped to -120 degrees Celsius. Inside his shelter, Tai Yang worked to make it stronger. He packed more snow between the ice blocks. He added another layer to the walls. The metal rocks glowed red, giving off good heat. The crystals he had found sent the heat back into the room instead of letting it escape. Tai Yang's wrist computer showed +5 degrees Celsius inside his shelter. It was warm enough to take off his gloves. He smiled. His shelter was working. Far away, in a big room with many screens, the test masters watched all 6 test takers. Du Hyun, the head test master, watched Tai Yang's screen with 3 wide eyes. "How does the human shelter so warm?" he asked. "He has no special body or powers." Another test master pointed to a different screen. "Look, Jae-ho is in trouble." On the screen, they saw Jae-ho, the gas being. Jae-ho's special suit was freezing. Cracks formed in the clear material. Cold air got in. The gas inside began to turn solid like ice. "Jae-ho's life signs are failing," a computer voice said. "Emergency rescue needed." Do Hyun pressed a button. "Send the rescue ship. Jae-ho is out of the test." Jae-ho was the first one to fail. 5 were left. Back in his shelter, Tai Yang did not know about Jae-ho. He was busy making his home better. He found that if he put the crystals in special patterns, they made even more heat. He drew patterns he remembered from old Earth books. Outside, the storm got worse. Ice pieces as big as fists hit the shelter. But the snow and ice walls were strong. Tai Yang kept working. His wrist computer beeped with a message. Warning. Storm will last 3 more days. External temperature now minus 125 degrees Celsius. Tai Yang nodded. He had planned for this. His food packs would last. His heat system was working. He would be okay. In their control room, the test masters watched the other aliens. Wu Jin, the tech expert, had built a small metal dome. It had heaters, but they used too much power. Wu Jin looked worried as power levels dropped. Hanul had dug a deep hole in the ice. The 6-armed alien's body made heat, but even that was not enough now. Hanul shivered as the storm found its way into the hole. Suji, the energy being, flew fast through the storm. It changed form many times, trying to stay warm. But the cold was so strong that even Suji's light grew dim. Junwoo, the stone alien, sat still in a small cave. The stone body did not feel cold, but the storm was so strong that small cracks began to form in Junwoo's arms. The human is doing best, Du Hyun said with surprise. His shelter is simplest but warmest. The other test master looked closer at the screen. How did he know to put the crystals in that pattern? That is old magic from the ice worlds. Do Hyun leaned forward. Not magic. Knowledge. Humans have lived in icelands on their planet. They pass down what works. Inside his worn shelter, Tai Yang did not know he was doing so well. He only knew he needed to keep working. He took out his knife tool and began to carve more ice blocks. He would make his shelter bigger tomorrow. Outside, the storm howled like an angry beast. Ice flew. Wind cut like knives. Temperature dropped lower. But inside Tai Yang's simple shelter, there was warmth. There was hope. There was human cleverness at work. The first test had come, and the human was passing. 10 days had passed on the ice planet. Tai Yang's small ice home had grown. Now it had 3 rooms connected by short tunnels. Each room did something special. The first room was for sleeping. The walls were lined with the blue crystals that helped keep heat in. The floor had soft snow that Tai Yang packed down each night. The second room was his workspace. Here he built tools from ice and the strange metals he found. He had made ice shovels, a small sled, and even a lamp from the glowing crystals. The third room was his heating center. Here, he placed the metal rocks in careful patterns. He had found that different patterns made different kinds of heat. Some were hot but used up the power cell quickly. Others gave less heat, but lasted longer. Outside, the storm had passed. Now the land was quiet, but still deadly cold at minus 85 degrees Celsius. Tai Yang went out each day to gather more materials. On this day, he found something new. Under a layer of ice was a green rock that seemed to store heat. When he held it near his power cell, it soaked up energy like a sponge. Later, it gave the heat back slowly. Perfect, Tai Yang said. He filled his pockets with these green rocks. Back in his shelter, he built a new heating system. The green rocks stored heat during the day. At night, when it was coldest, they released their heat slowly. This saved power and kept the shelter warm all the time. Now his wrist computer showed a steady plus 10 degrees Celsius inside his home. He could work without gloves and sleep without shivering. In the control room, the test masters watched with growing surprise. The human has made a heat storage system, Du Hyun said. None of our engineers thought of this design. Another test master pointed to a different screen. Look at Junwoo. Junwoo, the stone alien, was in trouble. The cold had worked into the stone body. Small cracks had grown into big ones. As they watched, a large crack split across Junwoo's chest. My body is failing, Junwoo said into the emergency comm. The cold cycles broke my stone. The stone alien tried to move toward a heat source their scanner had found, Tai Yang's shelter. But it was too late. The cracks grew too large. Junwoo's stone body fell apart. The second test taker was out. A rescue ship came for the pieces of Junwoo. As it landed, Tai Yang saw it from his shelter door. He watched as they loaded the broken stone body. "Two down," he said softly. Before the rescue ship left, Junwoo's headpiece asked to speak to Tai Yang. The human went to the ship. "Human," Junwoo said in a weak voice. "Listen, this planet has secrets. Under the south ice fields, there is a cave with special crystals. They make heat when—" The stone alien's voice faded as the last energy left. Tai Yang thanked the broken alien. He now had new information. The south ice fields were far, but he could reach them. That night, as Tai Yang planned his trip south, his computers beeped. A new message flashed. "Warning! Life sign detected near your shelter." Tai Yang looked out his small ice window. In the dark, he saw something moving slowly toward his home. It was dragging itself through the snow. He grabbed his light and shined it out. There, half frozen in the snow, was one of the other aliens. It was reaching toward his shelter, drawn by the warmth. Tai Yang had a choice: help the alien who would take his place if they won, or show what humans really stood for. He opened his door and stepped out into the deadly cold. Tai Yang moved quickly through the deep snow. The cold bit at his face like sharp teeth. He reached the shape that was trying to crawl toward his shelter. It was Suji, the energy being. Once bright orange and full of power, Suji now looked dim and small. The ball of energy was almost out. "Help!" Suji's voice was weak. Too cold. Energy. Fading. Without thinking twice, Tai Yang picked up the small ball of light. It felt barely warm in his gloved hands. He ran back to his shelter and closed the door against the deadly cold. Inside, he placed Suji near his best heating rocks. The energy being seemed to sigh as warmth reached it. "Why?" Suji asked weakly. "Why help me? I am your rival." Tai Yang shook his head. "On Earth, we don't let others die if we can help, not even rivals." Suji's light grew a little brighter. "My people said humans were weak and simple, but you have the warmest place on this whole planet." Tai Yang smiled. "We had to learn to live in all kinds of places on Earth. Cold, hot, wet, dry. We don't have special bodies like you. We have to use our minds." That night, as Suji slowly got stronger, the storm outside grew worse. Tai Yang's computer beeped with a new warning. "Danger, planet entering death phase. External temperature dropping to -150 degrees Celsius." Suji's light flickered with fear. "Death phase. The test masters didn't tell us about this." Tai Yang frowned. They wanted to see who would survive without warning. The wind outside screamed like a living thing. Ice crashed against the shelter walls. Some of the walls began to crack under the pressure. "We need to make the shelter stronger," Tai Yang said. He grabbed his tools and began to pack more snow against the weakest points. Suji floated up. "I can help. My energy can melt the snow just enough to make it solid ice when it cools again." Together, they worked to fix the shelter. Suji used small amounts of energy to melt the snow at the right spots. Tai Yang packed it into the cracks. When it froze again, the walls were stronger than before. In the control room, Do-hyun watched with great interest. "The human and the energy being are working together," he said. "This is new." Another test master looked worried. "Should we allow this? Working together wasn't against the rules, but—" Do-hyun held up a hand. "This is part of the test too. Let's see what happens." On another screen, they saw Woo Jin, the tech expert alien. All of Woo Jin's fancy devices had stopped working. The cold had frozen their power sources. The alien sat shivering in a dead shelter as the temperature dropped. "Woo Jin's life signs are critical," a computer voice said. "Emergency rescue needed." Do-hyun pushed the rescue button. Woo Jin is out of the test. Back in Tai Yang's shelter, he and Suji had finished the repairs. The walls now stood strong against the storm. Inside, it was warm enough to remove his heavy coat. I have an idea, Suji said. I can convert heat to other energy forms. Maybe I can help power your systems. Tai Yang thought for a moment. And I can build better heat collectors to help you stay strong. They began to work on a new system together. Suji would absorb some heat, turn it into electric energy for Tai Yang's tools. Then Tai Yang would use the tools to build better heat collectors. Outside, the death phase storm raged on. The temperature dropped lower than even the test masters expected. But inside the simple ice shelter built by human hands, two different beings from different worlds found a way to keep each other alive. 3 aliens were gone now. Only 3 remained: Tai Yang, Suji, and Haenul. And the worst was yet to come. Day 20 arrived with a new danger. The ground began to shake, small at first, then harder and harder. Tai Yang's ice walls cracked. Parts of the ceiling fell in. What is happening? Suji asked, glowing bright with fear. Tai Yang's wrist computer beeped. Warning. Frost quake in progress. Planet core freezing causes surface breaks. Frost quakes, Tai Yang said. The planet's core is so cold that it's breaking. A large crack appeared in the main room wall. Cold air rushed in. The temperature inside dropped fast. Suji's light dimmed as the energy being lost heat. We need to fix this now, Tai Yang said. He grabbed his tools and rushed to the crack. Outside was deadly cold at minus 140 degrees Celsius. No human could work in that for long. But Tai Yang had no choice. He pushed snow into the crack while Suji used the last of its energy to melt it just enough to stick. Suji, save your energy, Tai Yang said. I can do this. No, Suji said. Together we live or together we die. This is what humans call friendship, yes. Tai Yang smiled despite the danger. Yes, this is friendship. The ground shook again. More cracks appeared. For 2 hours, they worked non-stop to fix their home. Tai Yang's fingers turned blue with cold. Suji's light became so dim it was hard to see. Just when they thought they had fixed everything, the main heating room floor cracked wide open. Their heating rocks fell into a deep hole. No, Tai Yang shouted. Without the heating system, they would freeze in hours. Then he remembered what Junwoo had told him before dying. The south ice fields had special crystals that made heat. Suji, can you fly out and look south? There should be a cave with special crystals. Suji gathered its remaining strength and slipped through a small air hole. Outside, the energy being flew south, fighting against the deadly cold. While waiting, Tai Yang did his best to keep warm. He piled all his blankets together. He burned the last of his heating rocks. But the shelter grew colder each minute. After what seemed like forever, Suji returned through the air hole. The energy being was almost invisible, using the last of its power. Found it, Suji whispered, but too weak to carry any. Used all energy just to get back. Tai Yang had to go himself. He put on all his clothes and stepped into the killing cold. I will come back, he promised Suji. The south ice field was only 1 kilometer away, but in this cold, it might as well be 1,000. Each step was hard. His breath froze in his mask. His eyes burned from the cold. Halfway there, Tai Yang saw something moving toward him. A large shape pushed through the snow. It was Haenul, the 6-armed alien. Once strong and proud, Haenul now looked weak. The alien's special heat-making body was failing. 3 of its 6 arms hung frozen and useless. Human, Haenul called. Your shelter shows on my scanner. So warm. Please. Haenul fell face first into the snow. The cold was winning, even against this alien born for ice worlds. Tai Yang had another choice to make. Keep going to find the heat crystals and save Suji, or help Haenul and risk all their lives. In the control room, Do-hyun leaned forward. Now we see what the human is really made of. Tai Yang thought for only a second. Then he turned and walked to Haenul. He pulled the large alien up. "Come with me," he said. "First we get the crystals. Then we all go home." Together, the human and the alien moved toward the cave, fighting against the ultimate test of Helium-7. The ice cave glowed with soft green light. Tai Yang and Haenul stood at the entrance, amazed. Inside, the walls were lined with crystals that looked like green stars. "These are heat crystals," Haenul said weakly. "My people know of them. They come from the planet core." Tai Yang touched one. It was warm, much warmer than the deadly air around them. He used his tool to cut several large pieces free. Haenul, even with 3 frozen arms, managed to carry many more. "We must hurry," Tai Yang said. "Sujai is alone and has almost no energy left." They fought their way back through the bitter cold. The wind cut through their clothes like knives. Haenul, once so strong, now leaned on Tai Yang for support. When they reached the shelter, they found it nearly frozen inside. Suji was just a tiny spark of light in the corner. "Quick," Tai Yang said. "Place the crystals in a circle." Haenul did as told. Tai Yang arranged the green crystals in a special pattern he had learned from old Earth books. Then he placed his power cell in the middle. The effect was amazing. The crystals began to glow bright green. Heat poured from them like water. The temperature in the room rose quickly. Suji's light grew stronger as the energy being absorbed the heat. Soon, Suji was floating again. "It worked," Suji said. "The human's pattern makes the crystals work better." Haenul looked at Tai Yang with new respect. "How did you know that pattern?" "It's an ancient secret from the ice worlds." Tai Yang smiled. "On Earth, people living in cold places found similar patterns. Some things work the same everywhere, I guess." For the next few days, the 3 worked together to rebuild the shelter. It grew bigger and better than before. Now it had 4 rooms. One room was for Tai Yang, with a bed made of soft packed snow covered by his thermal blanket. One room was for Haenul, with space for all 6 arms and thick walls to keep extra heat in. One room was for Suji, kept very hot so the energy being could stay strong. The 4th room was their workroom, where they shared knowledge. "On my world," Haenul explained, "we build with ice and layers, like this." The alien showed how to make walls stronger by changing the direction of each ice block. "My people can sense energy flow," Suji said, drawing light patterns in the air. "These shapes make heat move most efficiently." Tai Yang taught them human ideas. "We learn to survive by sharing work. Each person does what they're best at. On Earth, we call this division of labor." In the control room, the test masters watched with great interest. "The human teaches them human ways," Du Hyun said. "And they teach him their knowledge. This has never happened before in the test." Another test master nodded. "The human doesn't just use his own ideas. He takes the best from others and adds them to his own." Do Hyun looked thoughtful. "Perhaps this is why humans have spread across their planet in so many environments. They don't just try to overpower nature. They learn from everything and everyone." Back in the shelter, Tai Yang was drawing plans on the ice wall. "If we build the heating system this way, using Suji's energy paths and Haenul's layering technique, we can heat the whole shelter with less power." The aliens watched and added their own ideas. Together, they were creating something new, a shelter that used the best knowledge from 3 different worlds. Outside, the deadly cold of Helium-7 continued. The frost quakes came and went. The temperature dropped even lower. But inside the shelter, 3 beings from 3 different worlds grew stronger together, combining their knowledge to survive what none could have survived alone. Day 30 arrived. The test was ending. Tai Yang, Suji, and Haenul stood outside their shelter, watching the sky for the pickup ship. Their shelter had grown into something amazing. It now had 6 rooms connected by smooth tunnels. The walls glowed with green and blue light from the crystals. Warm air moved through the rooms in paths designed by Suji. The structure stood strong against the wind thanks to Newell's building methods. "There it is." Tai Yang pointed to a bright light in the sky. The pickup ship landed on the ice not far from them. The door opened, and several test masters stepped out. They wore heavy suits against the cold. Do Hyun, the head test master, looked at the 3 survivors with surprise in his 3 eyes. 3 survivors, he said. "We expected none in this test." He looked at their shelter, then at his reading device. "And your shelter is plus 15 degrees Celsius inside." "Impossible." Tai Yang smiled. "Not impossible. Just good teamwork." The test masters led them onto the ship. As they left the ice planet behind, Tai Yang looked out the window. Helium 7 grew smaller, a blue-white ball that had tried to kill them but failed. Back at the space station, many important aliens waited to meet them. The 3 survivors were cleaned up, given warm clothes, and led to a big room with many seats filled with people. Do Hyun stood at the front. "Welcome to the graduation ceremony. This test was the hardest in 50 years. Most years, no one passes. This year, 3 did." The crowd made sounds of surprise and respect. "But this year was special for another reason," Do Hyun continued. "For the first time ever, a human took the test." All eyes turned to Tai Yang. Some looked surprised. Others looked doubtful. "Many thought the human would die first," Do Hyun said. "Humans have no special powers. No natural heat. No extra limbs, just their minds." He turned to face Tai Yang. "But we learned something important. The test was never just about surviving the cold. It was about finding those who can bring new ideas to our galactic community." Do Hyun held up a small gold badge. "Tai Yang Kim of Earth, you showed us that humans have something special. Not physical power, but mental power. The ability to learn, to share, to bring different ideas together." He handed the badge to Tai Yang. "You received the highest honors in test history. You not only survived, you helped others survive. You showed us what humans truly offer the galaxy." Tai Yang took the badge, feeling its weight in his hand. "And there is more," Do Hyun said. "The Interstellar Academy has created a new teaching position, Professor of Human Innovation Studies. Tai Yang, we ask you to be the first teacher." The crowd stood and made sounds of approval. Later, after the ceremony, Tai Yang sat with Suji and Newell one last time before they would go their separate ways. "What will you tell your people about humans?" Tai Yang asked. Suji glowed brightly. "That they are not weak as we thought. That their strength is in their minds and hearts." Newell nodded all 6 arms. "That they do not try to fight the cold alone. They build, they share, they think of new ways." Tai Yang smiled. "And I will tell humans that we are not alone in our thinking. That the galaxy has much to teach us, just as we have much to teach it." That night, Tai Yang sent a message back to Earth. He told them how a test meant to prove human weakness had instead shown human strength. How the frozen hell of Helium 7 had forged not just survival, but understanding between different worlds. And how sometimes the greatest power isn't being the strongest or the most special. Sometimes the greatest power is simply being human.